The Murdoch method. The system that never stops. In the end, the Murdoch story does not climax with truth. It climaxes with price. That is the real revelation of Part 4. Not that the family was broken. It had been breaking for years. Not that Rupert was ruthless. That was never in doubt. Not even that Lachlan wanted power or that James wanted vindication. The final revelation is that when everything is stripped down, when the depositions are read, when the schemes are exposed, when the appeals crack open one last narrow door, the whole thing comes down to the oldest question in dynastic warfare. What is control worth? And the darker question beneath it, what is family worth compared to control? That is why the final line matters so much. This is an all-consuming life. Rupert is saying far more than he appears to say. He is not merely describing a busy career. He is describing a totalizing logic. A life that consumes everything around it. A life in which business is not part of life. It becomes the lens through which all life is interpreted. Family becomes succession planning. Love becomes loyalty testing. Conversation becomes leverage. Disagreement becomes betrayal. Children become extensions of strategy. Even legacy stops meaning memory and starts meaning control after death. That is what all-consuming means here. Not just demanding, devouring. By the time James, Liz, and Prue write that letter asking for a détente, asking to take the lawyers out of the room and speak as a family, the letter is already arriving too late for the world they are appealing to. They are writing to a father. Rupert answers as a sovereign. He rereads their testimony, declares himself more convinced than ever that he was right, and sends them back to his lawyers. That response is cold, but it is also clarifying. It tells the truth of the entire saga. In Rupert's world, once the matter reaches the level of power, there is no return to intimacy. There is no just talk to me like family. Family has already been absorbed into the war machine. That is the tragedy. Because James and his sisters still seemed, at least for a moment, to believe there was some hidden room beneath all the legal combat where the father might still exist, apart from the empire. But Rupert's answer says there is no such room. Or if there once was, it has long since been consumed. And this is where the story sharpens. James is not pure. Lachlan is not simple. Rupert is not just a villain. Each of them is operating inside the same system, but at different levels of awareness. James wants principle, but he also wants recognition. Lachlan wants continuity, but he also wants the throne. Rupert wants legacy, but his idea of legacy has fused with domination. Everyone speaks in the language of stewardship, value, beneficiaries, and responsibility. But beneath all of it is something older. Humiliation, favoritism, inheritance, revenge. That is why the details matter. The report that didn't fit the narrative gets hidden. The scandals get settled. The truth gets managed. Information is not sovereign. It is strategic. If it helps, it is used. If it hurts, it is buried. That same pattern repeats again and again. Not what is true, but what preserves power. Not what is right, but what works. Not what does this cost, but what does this secure. That is the logic of the endgame, and it is why by any means necessary becomes dangerous when the meaning of winning is never questioned. Because then winning becomes anything.
Winning can mean control. Winning can mean humiliation. Winning can mean silence. Winning can mean survival of an idea. Winning can mean money. Winning can mean power after death. So the real question returns. What exactly has been won? Lachlan gets control. That is real. James and his sisters get billions. That is also real. But the category of win has shrunk. It now measures only money and control. And when that happens, the deeper loss becomes harder to see, but impossible to ignore. They lost the family. Not emotionally, structurally. They lost trust. They lost brotherhood. They lost the ability to see each other outside of suspicion. They lost the father as father. He became the test, the judge, the architect of pressure. And every old wound became part of the system. That is why the moment on the stand matters. A son reads what his father thinks of him, and something breaks. Power did not remove that vulnerability.
It exposed it. And on the other side, victory itself is not enough. Control is not enough. The record must be corrected. The loss must be erased. The other must lose properly. That is no longer strategy. That is identity. Rupert stands at the center of this as both architect and product. He builds the system, but he is also shaped by it. Because if control is lost, he feels erased. If this doesn't hold, it's like I never existed. That is the deepest line of all, because it reveals the truth beneath the empire. Not certainty. Fear. Fear of being undone. Fear of being replaced. Fear of disappearing. And so the system expands to protect against that fear. But in expanding, it consumes everything. Even the relationships that might have answered that fear differently. That is the paradox. The empire was meant to secure identity, but it made identity more fragile. Because now identity depends on control, and control must be defended at all costs. So yes, on paper, there are winners. But the deeper truth is quieter. A system that leaves everyone richer and no one whole is not a victory. It is a revelation. And the revelation is this: the game never ends. Because control needs attention. And attention starts the cycle again. New players, new empires, same system. Control, attention. Control everything.